President Cyril Ramaphosa leaves the United Kingdom today after a 3-day state visit where he met the King and secured new commitments for investment for at least 100 billion rand. Now, the President has promised the United Kingdom deregulation and assistance to companies hoping to do business in South Africa. Newzroom Afrika's Govan Whittles is in London, and hopefully you are going to be making your way back home, Mr. Whittles. You can't be captured there. Let's bring the conversation around the area of investment. I can only think of perhaps tourism. We heard the numbers. 400,000 Brits visit this country yearly. Are there any movements around, visa regulations, vice versa?
Those discussions did happen, Oli. Yesterday they happened at the UK-South Africa Business Forum. We understand that the President also meeting with King Charles III, discussing some investment, and during his meeting with the Prime Minister, an elaborate discussion on expanding business and trade, but also looking at whether that is possible. But there's been no definitive decision taken just yet. A few interesting comments from the President, some insight coming out of yesterday's meeting at the UK-South Africa Business Forum. Firstly, the President saying there are about 250,000 South Africans that are living in the UK. He believes it's more than that, but that's just an estimated figure, and saying that that demonstrates the strong bond between the two countries. But the real area of investment here is going to be in renewable energy, in mining, in the skills transfer, and then we know about that 100 billion rand infrastructure projects that essentially will be open to UK companies to bid for. So this goes twofold. Firstly, there are private United Kingdom companies that have invested in South Africa. They include Hive Hydrogen, which is setting up that 100 billion rand green ammonia plant in Port Elizabeth, in Becha, I beg your pardon. But that's not the only investment coming from the United Kingdom. There's also significant collaboration between some of the medical research institutes and the community healthcare workers in Gauteng, where as many as 100 community healthcare workers are being trained to become specialist midwives by British companies. These are some of the companies that were presenting on the sidelines of that forum. The interesting part from the UK perspective is that the South African government has indicated that they will facilitate the opening of bidding for 100 billion rand of South African money that's going towards infrastructure spend that they believe UK companies could bid for, win those contracts, and end up working in South Africa. There was always going to be a need for a trade-off here, and now we have much clearer detail on what that trade-off is. And then what we're expecting to hear a little bit later, the precise figure for how much the United Kingdom government will give to South Africa for the expansion of its green hydrogen valley. Remember the President speaking about the establishment of that valley in the Northern Cape, and the evacuation line runs from Limpopo through Gauteng all the way down to KwaZulu-Natal. We understand from the businesses here that a lot of money is needed to put up these transmission lines so that they could get clean energy from inland down to the coast, have it exported, and similarly bring it into the country. So that's the state of play on investment. But I have to mention that there's also potential for more South African wines to be coming into the United Kingdom. And the President says he'll look into whether it's possible to get licenses for South African beef to come into the UK, particularly biltong, which is flying off the shelves here.
Yeah, Govan, perhaps to conclude our conversation, this is something that doesn't happen often, and I say this because it affects you and I. The spokesperson lately is the one who conducts interviews on behalf of the President. There is an expected Q&A with the President himself. It doesn't happen often. Do you know what might come out of that?
Yes, we do, Oli, and you're right to describe it as a rare occurrence. We're grateful that it's happening here in London, and we've been allocated 1 hour. That's all the South African media that's made their way to the United Kingdom for the state visit. The President's team has indicated that he will give details on what is achieved during the state visit, but they're also not going to stop us from asking questions related to some of the pertinent issues at home. This is an opportunity that South African media and the public have been waiting for quite a while. Of course, the President has been taking questions from members of Parliament who are the constituency representatives of the South African public. He also took questions from the business people gathered at the Friends of South Africa House at the High Commission of South Africa here in London. But this is an engagement that the South African press has been waiting for over a month now. And it's something that's been long promised by the President's media team, and today they set to deliver on that. Of course, only there are a number of pertinent questions that we want to put to the President relating to national interest issues back home. But equally, the details on the kind of promises he's made to the businesses here in Britain and the kind of figures that he'll be able to give us in terms of what's been promised for investment back home is also likely to affect whether or not we can deem this state visit to be a success. And only it's less than 3 weeks to the ANC conference, we'll have to ask him about the nominations and some of the party matters. And we've been assured that this time we'll get a few comprehensive answers. So look out for that on Newzroom Afrika channel 405. That briefing starting at 12 o'clock. And of course, we'll venture to bring it to you live.
Govan Whittles, thank you very much for that comprehensive update. And be sure not to miss that Q&A session then.